Hi, I wanted to talk about my favorite niche book genres. I was going to call them tropes, but then I was like, these are probably too specific. Well, maybe they're too specific to be called tropes. So I'm just going to say them up front. 1. Lost Boy tropes. Lost Boy niche genre. 2. Amoral characters. And 3, and this one I think necessitates spoilers. Good guys get fucked. In the bad way. So I'll start with the non-spoiler ones. The first, Lost Boy. If I were to get you to read one of these, it would probably be Siddhartha. It's really thin and it's easily digestible, but this kid, Siddhartha, he's not content with being a Brahmin or whatever it is. He wants to go find the meaning of life, and he just goes on this relatively short journey, because the book is like 100 pages, of being an ascetic and following Buddha and whatnot. And then I've talked about this one already, The Razor's Edge. It's similar to Siddhartha, not as radical, but the dude is American, and he goes on a sort of spiritual journey through Europe and then through India. And then I'd recommend, I don't know who I was when I was doing these tabs. Those things are out way too far. But I'd recommend either A Moveable Feast or The Sun Also Rises. I think The Sun Also Rises is literally about the lost generation, so it might fall under this category a bit better. Having said that, some of the books span multiple of the 3 categories, but I have to place them somewhere. Yeah, it's post-World War I, and this group of people go from Paris to Spain, and they go to bullfighting, and there's like love triangles, and I think it's semi-autobiographical, or maybe totally autobiographical for Hemingway. But yeah, Lost Generation, Lost Boy, Easy Connection. And A Moveable Feast, it's very similar, but it follows a few expatriates who are real people that really lived. And it's their time in Paris, trying to figure out what to do after World War I, when the world was kind of in limbo after seeing such atrocities. And then the last one I also talked about on this channel, Let the Great World Spin by McCann. This one is it's kind of a story of a martyr. The guy, I think he starts in Ireland and he ends up in New York City, but he just kind of shifts through the seedy underbelly of New York City. Of the 4 that I've said, this one probably has the most beautiful writing. And then the next genre is amoral characters. There's an important distinction here between amoral and immoral. They're amoral. We might view them as immoral, but they don't really they don't think about morality. And I think I feel kind of bound to my morality and have a strict moral code. So I think if we're doing some psychoanalysis, I'd say that's why I enjoy reading these characters who are totally ruthless. I'll start with one that has a lady amoral character, because I feel like that's rarer in literature at the moment. But The Door, I think the lady who wrote it, The Door by Szabo, I think the lady who wrote it is, I don't want to get this wrong. I think she's Hungarian. But it follows this kind of erudite writer lady and her housemaid, and the housemaid is actually the amoral character. She's just like bigger than life, acts how she wants to, and it's crazy. You kind of get involved with this lady who's like, what is this housemaid doing to my life? But also she's just so magnetic that the erudite lady can't really, the scholar lady can't really get away from her. But it just takes these crazy turns, and it's called the door because the housemaid lady won't let anyone into her own house. People are stopped at the door and can't come in. Next I have The Sea Wolf by Jack London. This kid is in a shipwreck, and I think he's the lone survivor, and another ship comes along and picks him up, and he's like, great, I'm saved. Please take me home. And the crazy ass captain, I think his name is Wolf. Oh yeah, Wolf Larsen. Wolf Larsen is like, no, you're coming on this trip with me. And Wolf Larsen ends up being this absolute nutbag. Obviously, if someone comes on your ship and you're not willing to take them home and you're going to force them onto your voyage, that's kind of a hint at the dude being crazy. But I guess what's important about these books is that the plots to me aren't so important. It's those characters, those larger than life amoral characters are what draw me to the book. Now, this might fall out of the, look how cursed that cover is. But The Stranger by Camus, this would probably fall out of the Übermensch category because Camus was an absurdist, so it's more of an absurd character. But I think his name's Meursault. I haven't read it in a long time, but this is like the densest example of an amoral character. I mean, the opening line is very famous, you've probably heard it. Mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I can't be sure. That's like enough said on amorality. Again, I don't know who I was sticking the tabs out this far. Now I hate when the tabs are out this far. But Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky, Raskolnikov. He also bends my placement of him in the category a bit because he has gripes with morality because, minor spoiler, minor spoiler, he kills this lady and the entire novel is him wrestling with that. But people consider Dostoevsky one of the greatest philosophers, so it's like I'd be hard-pressed to say anyone's better than him at going inside the mind of someone with kind of a broken morality. And next, we have Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. I think Caesar was kind of misrepresented in history as this tyrannical force, but in reality, I think he was actually going against the grain, increasing public education and trying to help poor people, and that's why he was killed. So Caesar built his own morality in that in Rome, when you were a senator, it was like you lived a lavish life. You wanted to keep power and keep poor people screwed, and he was the opposite of that, even though it cost him his life. And we don't have much documentation of Caesar. I guess the majority of it is from Cicero, but obviously your average Roman couldn't write, so he couldn't write about it. So a good amount of our knowledge comes from Shakespeare's Caesar. So this, in a way, this is the only book that I could recommend for Caesar. Okay, if anything's gonna piss people off, it'll be this one. The Hobbit and or Lord of the Rings, I'd put Gandalf as an amoral character. On the surface level, he's obviously the good guy, but throughout the novels, he's his own person who will go away. He'll do what he thinks is right at whatever the cost is. And I think in his being enigmatic comes some of his loss of what we'd consider traditional morality, because he'll just disappear without a word, maybe do some shady stuff, and then come back and you'll be like, well, was what he was doing really that beneficial? I don't know. Maybe I didn't explain it that well. And you can argue with me in the comments, but Gandalf's going in the amoral category. The next genre kind of necessitates spoilers, because I'm calling it good guys getting fucked, because I think especially in movies, it's difficult to find movies where the good guys lose. 300 is an obvious example of that. But it's just like I'm tired of hearing the good guys win all the time and the happily ever afters. So the least spoiler of them is Plato, specifically the death of Socrates. I really need to change what this category is, because this falls out of amorality. Oh wait, no, he's not even in that category. He's just in the good guys getting fucked. Yeah, he gets fucked. He drinks the hemlock. Next, Game of Thrones. You don't have to read very far into Game of Thrones to realize that the good guys get fucked in a way that's not traditional to fantasy. The good guys don't necessarily win, and good people get killed for no good reason. And that's great. And then I have 2 books by McCarthy that, well, actually, The Road, it's a post-apocalyptic book. It's a father and son going through the wasteland. This is like as dark as it gets, next to Blood Meridian. I'd say Blood Meridian is darker, but if you consider the dad and the son to be good people who are just trying to survive, they're not really fucking people over, they get fucked for it. And McCarthy is like an expert of creating darkness in words. Like, you open his book and start reading and you just feel this ominous feeling. And it's also a pretty simple, it's an easy read. I think I read it in a day or two a long time ago. And akin to this book is I Who Have Never Known Man. I'm sorry if I got the title wrong a second time, but in that one, these ladies are stuck in a cage and men are kind of patrolling, and assuming the ladies are good, they get fucked. Not literally. Metaphysically, they don't get to experience any of the depth of life. It's a very bleak book. Bleak is probably the best word that I'd use to describe it. Okay, I forgot to talk about one person in the amoral category, because I don't have Blood Meridian by McCarthy, but the judge from Blood Meridian is like the pinnacle of amoral characters. I still think about him. I can still see his face. He's like what we would consider a villain, but in another way, he's his own person. He's doing what he thinks is right, which I don't think he really believes in wrong or right. I have a hard time blaming people for their actions, because it's like, at what point does a person become responsible for their actions if they're just, it's the only way that they could act, and they're just acting on what their previous experiences have led them to believe is how they should act, which I think allows me to be more attracted to these characters. But the judge is nuts. If you've read Blood Meridian, maybe you'll get what I'm talking about, but he's like better than Ledger's Joker. It's just, he is amoral. Yeah, those were the genres I wanted to talk about. If you disagree about any of it, let me know in the comments. I can see this being a bit of an inflammatory post. But yeah, see ya.